In Asian culture, the Chinese New Year is the most important holiday, and this event is celebrated annually by a quarter of the world's population, in China, as well as in Vietnam, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Brunei, Indonesia, Thailand, Korea, and Japan. Also, the latter, which was formerly based on the Chinese calendar, has operated on the Gregorian calendar system since 1873. Since we are discussing 2V here, that is the Vietnamese lunar astrology of the 1 and 9 celestial bodies, as passed down by Vauvenem and François Villet, I would like to wish you a very happy New Year in Vietnamese. Chúc mừng năm mới. The New Year period is a major celebration with about a week of official holidays based on the lunar calendar. It is time for large family reunions and festivities, big feasts, traditional dishes, fireworks, red envelopes, temple visits, the Lantern Festival, and this period brings heavy traffic throughout Asian countries, widespread store closures, and completely overwhelmed transportation networks. The Chinese are pragmatic and have a flexible start to the year. You've probably noticed that the Chinese New Year never falls on the same date. In fact, it's more accurate to refer to the Chinese Spring, and we'll see why. The flexible date of the Chinese New Year, which is difficult for Westerners to understand, can be explained by the fact that it's determined by a calendar that operates differently from the Gregorian calendar. The latter, which was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582 in the West, is based on a logical and linear way of thinking. The Chinese created a calendar that, like their sedentary and agricultural culture, follows nature and thus the seasons. It is based on a 12-year cycle and varies from year to year. Historical sources mention a planetary alignment chosen as an auspicial inaugural day when the planets form a string of pearls, and astronomical studies published by National Geographic magazine indicate March 5, 1953 before Christian era as the original date chosen to celebrate the 60th birthday of the Yellow Emperor Wang Di. Personally, I find it increasingly difficult to offer New Year's greetings on a date arbitrarily set as January 1st. It makes less sense to me to wish a Happy New Year with a specific number without considering that the year holds in store what it is made of and what it can bring us, whether we have already encountered the energy it contains and what it has in store for us. The start of this movable year is determined by this prestigious calendar, which has successfully synthesized the lunar 348 days and solar 366 days cycles and rigorously reflects the tropical year by following the seasonal cycles. We distinguish between the solar calendar, the sun is young and is associated with heaven. This calendar was used in astrology, once reserved for the emperor's officials and scholars, and its interpretations were exclusively reserved for the imperial family. The solar new year corresponds to the midpoint between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. It always falls on February 4th, exceptionally on the 3rd or on the 5th. The lunar calendar, the moon is yin, it is linked to the earth. The Ministry of Rites and Spring prescribed, according to the ordinances of the moon, month by month, what the kings must do to govern the people's lives in the form of a royal almanac. Astronomers and astrologers were attached to the Ministry of Spring. The Grand Superior of Sacred Ceremonies was responsible for regulating the calendar so that the people's activities throughout the season would flow harmoniously. Factors taken into account included the color of the clouds, the quality of the water and wind, drought, famine, or abundance. Today, this calendar is followed by the population of agricultural work, sowing, harvesting, tides, festivals and celebration, and can be observed with the naked eye. The periods between seasons are always of the earth element because this element facilitates the transformation from one element or season to the next. Do you remember in the video of the Dance of Heaven, I told you about the 4 earth squares? Well, here we find the correspondence of these transitional periods, which are central to Chinese thought, whether in traditional medicine, feng shui, or astrology. In the writings of various sinologists such as An Cheng, Marcel Granet, Henri Maspero, and Leon van der Merch, we find the connections between these interseasonal periods when the emperor made his annual royal tour of the Palace of Lights, known as the Ming Tong, Tong meaning the great edifice and Ming meaning light. This Ming Tong Hall is square, a shape symbolizing the earth. It's divided into 9 rooms, symbolizing the 9 provinces of the empire. It's covered by a circular thatch roof, just like the round pond surrounding it, which symbolizes heaven. Here we find the concept of qi, the breath of light, which flows between heaven and earth, according to the teachings of Mencius. Each year, it was in the Ming Tong that the king acted as the son of heaven by promulgating the monthly decrees at each new moon. He would then ritually take his place for the duration of that moon in the corresponding hall of the Ming Tong, thus conforming to the cycles of the seasons. He would make his rounds through the 4 rooms situated in the 4 cardinal directions, spending 1 month in the central room on each side, in the east in spring, in the south in summer, in the west in autumn, and in the north in winter, while changing his clothes, chariot, and banner to match the symbolic colors of the season, as well as his food. Here we find the very foundations of Chinese dietetics and traditional feng shui. During the transitional months between seasons, he would move to the corner rooms and remain there for 2 months, which corresponds to those famous intercalary months of the earth element, and more specifically to symbolize the end of summer, which in the calendar falls in July as the year begins in February. The emperor would then spend the 18 days of the last month of summer in the central hall, symbolizing this midpoint of the year. We see that the Son of Heaven embodies and represents within his very body both space and time. As he moves, the emperor progresses both in space, from one cardinal point to another, and in time, from one season to another. It would be even more accurate to say not that the sovereign moves through time, but that space-time unfolds as he moves. In other words, it is the Son of Heaven who, through his movement, opens up space and time, which are inseparable. It is time-lived and marked by the 4 seasons. Now the question that comes to mind is, how can this calendar possibly work? Because, as I mentioned earlier, there is a discrepancy between the lunar cycle, which lasts 348 days, and the solar cycle, rounded to 366 days. The lunar and solar requirements were apparently irreconcilable, but the ingenuity of Chinese scholars managed to create a perfect synthesis and develop a rigorous system. To achieve harmony and fluidity, an extra month called Renier was added, which translates to a leap year. So what is a leap year? Twice every 5 years, the years have not 12 but 13 lunar months. This 13th lunar month, called a leap year, includes the insertion of an extra month to make up the discrepancy. To illustrate this specific concept, here is an example from 2023, which was a yin-water cat year, showing how this extra month appears in the calendar. The previous one was in 2020, and the next will be in 2028. But let's get back to the Lunar New Year. It corresponds to the second new moon of the year following the winter solstice. This varies and falls anywhere between January 21st and February 19th. In the year 2026, the solar year began on February the 3rd, while the lunar year and its celebrations do not begin until February the 17th. The closer these 2 dates are, the more this proximity creates an alignment of forces that gives the year a sense of energetic coherence, a more concentrated energy. the year is, in a way, more eager to begin. At the start of the new year, it is advisable to have sorted out and settled one's affairs, cleared one's debts, and returned what does not belong to us, so that we are better able to avoid carrying the baggage of the previous year and can start something new feeling lighter. The primary goal of this discipline, just like other classical Chinese techniques such as acupuncture and shiatsu, martial arts and traditional feng shui, is to preserve one's individual energy to minimize exhaustion while preserving and strengthening longevity. According to certain legends, myths and folk tales, the Jade Emperor invited all the animals to a grand feast to share his observation with them. 12 animals attended the gathering. They arrived in the following order: the determined ox, carrying the rat on his back, who jumped down at the last moment to the emperor's feet to be the first to present himself before him, then the courageous tiger, the homebody cat, and so on. The names of the animals may vary because this legend is known throughout most of Asia, and each country adapts it to its own culture. Thus, the ox is also called the buffalo, the cat is called the rabbit or the hare, and the pig is called the boar. To keep track, remember that the first animal of the Chinese zodiac is the rat. Next, each animal is associated with an element, and the first element representing spring is wood, which is synonymous with birth and growth. This is a primary impulse. It produces fire, think of wood feeding the fire in the chimney, which in turn feeds earth, think of a volcano, which in turn feeds metal, think of ore, which in turn feeds water, think of the phenomenon of condensation or traces element, and water nourishes wood, rain makes crops grow, and so on. Every year, the earth revolves around the sun, and the energetic qualities associated with each year are expressed as a pair. Each year is characterized by an animal and an element. Each of these 12 animals is paired with one of the 5 elements, resulting in 60 energetic qualities, which in turn can be yin or yang. Thus, the young wood rat marks the beginning of the very first cycle in 2637 before Christian era, followed by the yin wood ox, then the young fire tiger, then the yin fire cat, then the young earth dragon, and the yin earth snake. We are currently in a 12-year metal cycle that began in 2020, which was the year of the young metal rat, followed in 2021 by the year of the yin metal ox, then 2022 the year of the young water tiger, 2023 was the year of the yin water cat, 2024 was the year of the young wood dragon, 2025 was the year of the yin wood snake, and on February 17, 2026, we enter the year of the young fire horse, which will be followed on February 6, 2027, by the year of the yin fire goat, and so on. But what are these 12-year cycles? Each element goes through the Chinese zodiac. The 12 animals correspond to 12 years. In 2020, we began a new 12-year cycle, which is of the metal element. To better understand this, I started in 2637 before Christian era and worked my way forward to the present day. I did the math and it adds up. And indeed, time unfolds like a ball of yarn in a steady, regular motion. 2032 will be the year of the water rat, which will begin in a 12-year cycle of the water element. 2020 was the year of the metal rat, which began a 12-year cycle of the metal element. 2008 was the year of the earth rat, which began a 12-year cycle of the earth element. 1996 was the year of the fire rat, which opened a 12-year cycle of the fire element. 1984 was the year of the wood rat, which opened a 12-year cycle of the wood element. 1972 was the year of the water rat, which opened a 12-year cycle of the water element. In this classical Chinese philosophy, one of the essential things to remember is that time is cyclical. There is only one thing that does not change, and that is that everything is always changing. At the same time, there is a Chinese proverb that says, "One often bathes in the same river." What this means is that these cycles have been observed and identified for millennia by scholars in the service of the emperor, who over the centuries developed elaborate systems for predicting earthly events based on celestial observation. It is thus possible to prepare for what is about to return and to align oneself with the energy of the coming year. It's important to note that these are not predictions, but rather forecasts. So if I know it's going to rain, well, I'll bring my umbrella. These systems of the 12 animals combined with the 5 elements explains the significance of the 60th birthday celebration, which is a major event in China. Indeed, this milestone marks the return of the same energy as that of your birth year, but with the added benefit of experience, which represents wisdom. Until you turn 60, you haven't yet encountered the same energy twice in terms of years, since each year possesses a unique energetic quality, personality, and character. This age of reason allows you to recall past experiences while swimming in the same energetic current, but with a certain perspective, there is a familiar feeling to returning to bathe in the same river. Here are some key points to help you understand the Chinese New Year. Keep in mind that it follows a lunisolar calendar and that the date of the Chinese New Year varies because it follows this calendar, which in turn follows the natural cycles and season. The solar New Year generally falls on February 4, more rarely on the 3rd or 5th, right between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, and the Lunar New Year varies from January 21st to February the 19th, and it's set on the second new moon. We refer to it as the Chinese New Year, but it is more accurate to call it the Chinese Spring. Indeed, starting on December 21st during the winter solstice, it is at the heart of the Great Yin that the little young emerges with 1 extra minute of light. And February marks the transition from the solstice to the equinox. It represents a major energetic shift that, with the second new moon, ushers in the season of renewal. Remember that it's a good idea to have everything cleaned, organized, debts paid off, and everything in order before the new year arrives, so there is no time to waste in welcoming the new year with flair. 2026 welcomes the energy of the fire horse, which is enthusiastic and spirited, highly impulsive, full of charm and vitality, integrity and focus, and also a driving force. In the zodiac, the horse is associated with the south, the direction of the zenith, and full light, corresponding to noon. Fire represents what rises. It is very young energy, therefore extroverted, warm and dynamic, but one that can sometimes get carried away and become chaotic. So follow this dazzling chi spontaneously while keeping a level head. So instead of galloping and getting carried away, remember to slow down and take your time in this year that will fly by. Be mindful of your posture and walk calmly at your own pace in your own rhythm. This year, the horse is accompanied by young fire. This element speaks of intelligence and mental agility, clarity and discernment, illumination, enlightenment, and clarification, but also of spirituality, much like a flame that rises, radiates, and purifies. Finally, the horse represents movement and freedom. So this is a wonderful year for traveling, but also for asserting yourself, having self-confidence, feeling free to dare and show, to let others see. So my best wishes for this new year 2026, ride a fire horse and rejoice. Feel free to like this video and say hi with an emoji of your choice, and see you soon!